I really don't think that China could look more messy than it does right now, but every time I say that, I end up getting proved wrong, so we'll see how things change moving forward. Island Boys 2 Electric Boogaloo. In the last version of this scenario, you guys were disappointed at the lack of variety of island nations, and I think that that is a good criticism. So what I did this time is give the buff to every island-based nation that is less than 5 provinces rather than a few select nations. For example, this means every country in Ireland will have the buff, but Scotland and England do not. With so many tags with the modifier, I can imagine that this is going to be an interesting one from start to finish, and there is so much expansion that can be expected as early as unpausing. And if you want early access to future videos on the channel, make sure to check out the Patreon linked below, and while you're down there, you should consider subscribing to the channel for more goofy content to come. Another day, another 1444 for you. But as you could probably tell from the title and the intro, yes, we are buffing some nations, not all nations. For example, if you take a look over here, there is no buff for England. There is no buff for Venice. There is no buff for Denmark, despite their capital being on an island. However, our new friends of Sardinia are in fact getting the Island Boys buff, as are the boyos over here on Sri Lanka, all 3 of them, and many, but not all of these nations. For example, Majapahit does not have it because they have too many provinces, as does Brunei, but the smaller nations like Palembang or Pasai, they will all receive the buff. The trigger to receiving it is having 4 or less cities, so that way I didn't give the big buffs to like England and stuff, because I did a test run and England got like a world conquest, which, you know, nobody wants to see that. At least I don't want to see it. I don't know about you guys. Either way, it should be a fun one. There is going to be many more tags with the buff this time around, as per your request. But before we unpause, I do want you guys to take a second and leave a comment down below. Let me know who you're rooting for. Also, if you have a suggestion for a video that you'd like to see in the future, leave it down there as well. Either way, you know how we start it off. We hit that speed 5 and we unpause. 4 years in, we have the usual issues. We got Byzantium getting eaten up by the Ottomans, and you got Normandy, as well as this land down here in Bordeaux, eaten up by France. Before we get too far in, I will tell you guys, I think I'm rooting for the goats over here in Goatland, because that dude's got nice hair. I wish I had hair that looked like that. Very suave. And to be honest with you, when I was in Stockholm for ParadoxCon, I have to say, Swedes are very pretty people. Like, the men and the women in Stockholm were gorgeous, like all of them, no homo. I felt very much out of place with my, you know, brown hair and stocky build. They were all like these tall, skinny, athletic looking blonde people. Wow. It's just crazy how different people look from Europe versus from America. You wouldn't think so, but some places they definitely do. Oh yes, this is perfect. This is exactly what we're looking for. These guys are big, but they don't have the buff. These guys, both with 3 provinces, have the buff, and probably gonna split up Borneo between themselves. Banjar also has it, so yes, every nation on this island has the buff, so we'll see how things go with that. Oh yeah, boys, just like I said, they got full annex, because the buff does include aggressive expansion as well as admin efficiency, so expansion is going to be very easy for these nations. It should get quite interesting, especially in the late game, when you get these big major blobs that have conquered tons of land in these massive regions, and then they start going head to head against each other. That's the part that I'm most excited for, is the late game. Well, taking a look over here between Sambas and Bali, it definitely looks like a couple of these boys over here in Indonesia are doing their thing. The various colonizable provinces are getting filled up, so it is only a matter of time before they start to fill in each other, so to speak. It's 1500, Japan still not united. We've got an Ashikaga and this Usugi over here, but it does look like Korea and Ming are both getting beat up on at the same time by Ashikaga. Betsa Misaraka over here in Madagascar are doing well, colonizing a good chunk of South Africa, but also making their way over here into East Africa. They've even got a large portion of the land up here in the Horn, so they're doing pretty good. Also doing pretty good, Cyprus, migrating up into Anatolia, definitely giving them a decent border with the Ottoman Turks. We'll see how that goes for them in the long term. It also looks like the Knights of Rhodes have expanded up here into Chios, and they now control the islands up here. Sardinia has taken over the Balearic Isles, or at least a couple of them, but more importantly, they've also taken over a ton of land up here in Milan, as well as over here to Ferrara even. And actually, if you cross over here, they have land over here as well as down into Dalmatia. So definitely looks like they're doing good. Even more so, they are colonizing the coast of West Africa at the moment. So definitely looks like sooner or later we're going to see some very strong colonial powers from the island boys. And I guess you can say that Gotland has got land. England and France have gone back and forth taking land from each other, and the island boys of the Emerald Isle are lazy. They're doing nothing. They're just kind of sitting around. They literally haven't taken a single province from anybody. I do not know how France has this one single province here in the interior of Ireland, but I'm not going to ask too many questions. Iceland has still not colonized anything quite yet, but we do have some colonization going on over here, mostly just Castile, with the Caribbean going to Portugal. And we've even got some English guys over here on Bermuda. So the colonial game will be picking up for North America very soon. There is certainly some chaos going on over here in the rest of Europe, though. Look at all the random tags that have expanded, like Constance and Augsburg, but Bohemia getting thrashed by Poland. Poland, who, by the way, did not take the personal union over Lithuania. Instead, they decided to migrate down here, take over Wallachia, Moldavia, but now they're exchanging blows with Bohemia. And I feel like you don't see this very often, but Austria is just two provinces over here in Wien and Wienerwald. I know it's Wien, it's just funnier if you pronounce it wrong. The amount of corrections that I get on my pronunciation is next level. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, at this point, I'm going to start pronouncing stuff wrong on purpose. For no other reason than just because it's funny. And now the major thing that we're looking at here on the Great Powers in the year 1500, the year of our Lord. France is the #1 great power, but only because Ming has not embraced the institution. But if you look down at the 7th spot there, Kotte, they're one of the island boys. They are the only island boy on the Great Powers list right now. And if they were to embrace the institution, they would actually be in the top 4. So there is definitely something to be said about that. Aside from them, though, we have the Ottomans, Castile, the Mamluks, Poland, and Muscovy in the top 8. And I'm very happy to see that Kotte has cut off Bengal from the coast, meaning Bengal probably not going to be thriving in this timeline. Well, here we are, 1550, and we've got some colonial nations looking pretty cool. But this isn't going to work for me. We're going to have to change this up. Much better. We have a couple of federations over here, but of course, we have New Spain, Spanish Louisiana, and Florida, all Spanish colonies that have formed. We have a British Newfoundland as well as a Vinland. The Caribbean is a Portuguese colony, and it seems like this time Uncle Pablo is speaking a bit of that Italian. Meanwhile, in the south, Rio de Prata for Portugal, and Peru is Spanish as well as Brazil. Betsimisarok in South Africa definitely has a ring to it. It's definitely grown as well. This is a new one as well. We've got them in the Congo as well as on the Congolese coast. And how about Betsimisarok and Horn of Africa, all the way up into Arabia and into Nubia. The lands over here are still definitely a mess. A bunch of strong tags that are vying for power, and they can't seem to beat each other because they are all buffed. So yeah, I guess I didn't really think about that. My God, look at this mess. What have I done? Japan is massive, taking over Korea, a large chunk of Manchuria, all the way into Siberia. They've got a couple of random provinces over here. I have no idea. I assume it has something to do with tributaries. Oirat is destroyed. Shun is getting destroyed by Japan right now. Ming obviously has collapsed. I really don't think that China could look more messy than it does right now, but every time I say that, I end up getting proved wrong, so we'll see how things change moving forward. Meanwhile, the Sri Lankan boys of Kotte still doing well, making good gains over in Gujarat as well as in Bengal and all the way into Burma. Russia has formed, and that's pretty cool. You like to see tags form like that. And then you look over here and you see, oh my God, Gotland. I think you can definitely say that Gotland is trying to unite the Scandinavians. They've taken over all of Sweden, parts of Sapmi up here, most of Norway, and a large portion of Denmark also. And yes, of course, we have an Italy like you saw in South America, right next to two Sicilies. So yeah, that's a thing. And somehow the sick man of Europe is definitely sick. Look at this, the Sicilian Balkans, as well as a large Cyprus, taking over a very large portion of their development over here, as well as all the way over here into Dagestan and that area in the Caucasus. Poland and Lithuania continue to face off with some very long borders over here in Eastern Europe, but they both seem to be doing quite well in their own regards. We have a couple of cool formables over here. We have Bavaria, who has lands all the way from Switzerland all the way up into Czechia in Silesia even, and Franconia with a few provinces here in central Germany. Big Daddy France doing pretty good over here on the mainland, as well as all the way up into England. Also making some gains up here in England is Scotland. Scotland is making gains in England. Meanwhile, over here in Ireland, I have no idea why the AI over here is just broken. Nothing is happening except for France has taken one more province over here. Though it does look like this nation here is occupying this province here from England. So maybe they'll grow. Maybe. We'll see. I hope they grow. Look at that hat. That's a cool hat. I want to wear that hat. Would you guys wear that hat? Oh, what about this hat? This is a cool hat too. Paradox makes some nice hats. The French have begun colonizing the Guinea coast, but definitely going to be outshined over here by the Italian Niger. The Reformation is well underway in northern and central Germany, as well as Czechia and parts of Hungary as well. So far, it looks to be mostly Protestant, but we do have some Reformed over here in Ireland, as well as in the British Isles as a whole, with a couple English colonies over here in the New World spreading that Reformed faith. But yeah, it doesn't look like we're going to have Anglicanism this time around. Well, it appears that I spoke too soon, because within 10 years of unpausing, the Church of Scotland has indeed spawned, and we have Anglicanism here in Northumberland, working its way up into Scotland. Though this center of Reformation over here is probably going to cause some issues, especially considering that they also have Catholic zealots to deal with. So Scotland is going through some stuff right now. Also, they have a De Medici as their ruling dynasty, which is that's definitely a thing. And since we're here, we might as well take a look at the great powers. With about 120 years into the game, Italy in the #1 spot, which is an island boy. Japan, an island boy, in the #2 spot. Spain, doing well because of the colonial game, but also Betsimisaraka, island boy. France, followed by Cyprus, island boy. Poland, and then Russia in the 8th spot. Sadly, it looks like Kote got bumped out, but we'll see how things go in the long game. Now, this is a colonial nation that I have never heard of. Massachusetts is a colonial nation of Gotland. A little bit outshining for Gotlander, Louisiana, as well as Vinland, with a big name placement, but as you guys know, just like in real life, Canada is mostly wasteland. Though challenging the Spanish over here on the left coast, we do have Japanese Cascadia, so looks like Japan decided to get in on the colonial game. We have a very legendary Gotlander, Cuba, taking over land from Portugal, and an independent Brazil right next to an Irish Munster who has been exiled to the New World. Aside from that, it is mostly the same in South America, but we do have Tyrone down here as well. Betsimisaraka continues to dominate over here in Africa, the majority of the development in Africa, if I had to guess, with Imarina over here, who's actually another native from Madagascar who has been exiled to the mainland. Kote continues to dominate in India, and they've even pushed well over into Malaysia. You can see they even have some provinces over there on Sumatra. And when I said that China couldn't get any worse than this, it's gotten worse. It's gotten a lot worse. I don't even know if you can call it China anymore. I mean, it's all Japan. Always has been. With Russian West Siberia here, because, yeah, Russia has been gobbled up by a non-buffed Poland. It's almost like Poland is broken since 1.34 in the Lions of the North, but not quite as broken as Cyprus, Italy, and Gotland, all with absolutely massive borders in Europe. And Asia Minor, I guess. The game considers this Europe, and anytime I ever refer to this as Europe, I get comments of people pushing their glasses up like, actually, Anatolia is Asia. It's not Europe. But here you go, Jimmy. I want to show you something. You see that right there? Continent? Europe. Over here? Europe. Down here? You guessed it. Europe. Over here? Europe. And then right here is Asia. Europe, Asia. Europe, Asia. Get it? Got it? Good. Italy certainly chose violence and is destroying France. Sadly, or happily. Really depends on where you're coming from with that one. But just look at the mess up here in the British Isles, man. Tyrone has decided to go colonial, getting some sheep shaggers under them, as well as a couple of English boys. And it looks like England may even lose a couple more provinces between Scotland and Tyrone. Some occupations on the way. Also, look at this dapper young lad over here hanging out in Cornwall. The Cornish dress well, no doubt. We do have a Cypriot, Italy, pushing 2 Sicilies down here into a couple of provinces, but they have some more land in northern Africa, right next to their Italian brothers in northern Africa. I think that I've seen Italian colonies over here, and I don't think it really went the way that they thought it was going to in the past. We also have a 1-province minor, Bulgaria, which is sweet. I like that. And the beautiful Constantinople, the city of world's desires, owned by Cyprus. The Reformation has mostly been crushed, and it looks like Anglicanism is not doing well over here either. It's still mostly reformed in the British Isles. The New World is an absolute mess. A little bit of colonization, a little bit of conversion, but yeah, it's a mess. We even have some Confucians over here, which is hilarious. South America is a little prettier, mostly Catholic, but we still have some Reformed up here and a little bit of Anglican down here. Meanwhile, Africa, loving them feet. And it appears over here that Kote going for the Buddhist Strike Back achievement, converting much of India to their branch of Buddhism. And Asia, no surprise, it's a mess. Though, to be fair, it's usually a mess. With 120 years left in the game, Tyrone is right on the cusp of greatness before they inevitably form Great Britain, because they always do that whenever they conquer the islands. They just end up forming Great Britain, which Seems like a great disservice, but you know, they're gonna do it and there's nothing we can do to stop it. From the land of goats, we now have Scandinavia looking extremely good. True trailblazers, even building the Kiel Canal. Now the HRE does still exist and the Emperor is in Bavaria, but I don't see a Bavaria down here in Bavaria, and that is because they are a one province minor up here in Saxony. Westphalia has formed, and it actually looks pretty nice. Got decent borders over here into the lowlands, so it's probably got a decent bit of trade over here in the English Channel. We have Russia, and then Russian Smolensk, and Poland and Lithuania both doing pretty good still, but yeah, Lithuania not so good. And then over here, the Ottomans, Cyprus, is doing pretty good as well. No surprise, they are indeed island boys. And taking a look over here into Africa, we got Betsa Misiraka with these chef's kiss borders over here in southern and eastern Africa, and well into Congo, as well as even parts of Western Africa, splitting it with Italy and some parts up in Egypt here with Cyprus. Italy pushing Spain out of Spain, who has pushed Portugal out of the continent as well for the most part. You guys know about the Grand Canaries, right? Mexican colony of the Grand Canaries. Because that's right, we do have a Mexican colony here, and even funnier yet, the Empress's name is Guzman, which is El Chapo's name. If you don't know who El Chapo is, look him up. Literally right before I unpaused the recording, Tyrone won a war against them and took a bunch of lands, so as soon as they core them up, Tyrone gonna have their own Mexican colony. And in truly the worst timeline, it seems that Brazil has taken over a large portion of South America while not controlling a large portion of Brazil because they lost it to an Irish nation. And speaking of Irish nations, I know you're not thinking about Colombia when I mention Irish nations, but whether you like it or not, this is peak Colombia. The West Indies, which is an independent nation that I actually have never seen before, with the Scandinavian West Indies sharing part of the area with them. Meanwhile, we have New Scandinavia, though I kind of liked Massachusetts better. We also have Scandinavian Louisiana and Vinland. Japanese Cascadia is still here, and it looks like the Spanish are going to lose most of their colonies, so I'd be surprised if Japan did not take a few more. But then again, they're a little bit preoccupied conquering all of Asia. All of it. Samba seems to be the guy doing most of the work over here, but Koti definitely pushing them back. Though it looks like they might be getting kicked out of Borneo by the boys in Sambas. Bali up here starts as an OPM, I believe, on this little island, has conquered most of this area over here in Australia, and looks like they're losing a war, but they're probably going to hold on to most of it if I had to guess. And the Protestants are essentially gone. There's a couple of small little minors with that as their state religion, but not much. And as I mentioned, the HRE, yeah, the HRE's gone for the most part, though we do have France as an elector, which I think is pretty sweet. Matter of fact, there's only one of the original electors here in Saxony, and the rest are all new. Not that it matters, because the 8 princes are not going to be able to get any imperial authority that will allow them to pass any reforms, so yeah, HRE's gone for the most part. Japan, with the naval hegemony, very interesting to see, but they are still second fiddle to a very massive Italy, followed by Cyprus, Kote, Scandinavia, Betsa Misiraka, Tyrone, and rounding out the number 8 spot, the only one who is not an island boy, Poland. So take a second, pause the video, let me know in the comments below, who do you think is going to end up winning? Because I do think Japan may end up clashing with a couple of these guys eventually, but you know, only time will tell. Now, in 1821, this is not a tag that I had expected to see. Ireland controlling the natural borders of Ireland. Italy controlling most of mainland Europe, as well as the majority of northern Africa, as well as the Sahel. Somehow the Ottomans made a comeback, but I reckon it was because they were released by Cyprus. Betsa Misiraka finished with roughly the same border that they had last time we looked, except for the fact that they took over a large chunk of India. That's right, Kote was dismembered. So how about this revolutionary Japan with a ton of little enclave border gore, but revolutionary Japan, my friends. I've officially seen it all. We also have revolutionary Bali over here, so yeah, you can't forget about them. And while we're here, I think we have to acknowledge how Sambas held on to Borneo the entire game. They didn't give it up. We also have revolutionary Iraq over here from Baghdad. And I kind of can't believe it, but Russia ended up holding on with 4 provinces in the end date. And speaking of 4, Poland cut into 4 different pieces by mostly Scandinavia and Italy. Though judging by the borders, it doesn't look like they've been getting along. Brazil continued their dominance here in South America, with Munster splitting Brazil with them. But it does look like the Italians decided that the Irish Colombians were no longer allowed, and so they incorporated them into their own colony. And speaking of integrating into colonies, how about this Irish Mexico eating the entirety of the original Mexico by Tyrone's subject? Pretty good. We also have Irish California on either side of Spanish California, which is pretty sweet. And we even have Irish Alaska all the way up here with a couple of random provinces here and there. And it looks like Japanese Cascadia managed to keep basically the exact same borders that they've had for the last like 200 years. So that's a thing. New Scandinavia and Vinland, as well as Scandinavian West Indies, managed to look mostly exactly the same, but it looks like they took a couple of provinces over here from this West Indies country. And the religious map looks mostly what you would expect it to. They did a bit more conversions over here, and it looks like the Reformed subject of Ireland did a bit of conversions for themselves. But yeah, mostly Catholic, and mostly fetishist, but it looks like a bit of Catholic conversions for Italy going on over here in Africa. But look at this mess. The Buddhists converted most of India, and then India was conquered by a fetishist who hasn't converted anything, basically. So yeah, pretty painful to look at. Same thing over here. It's basically exactly the same as it was last time we looked. A mess of Tengri, Buddhism, Shinto, Confucianism, and a bunch of Sunni and Orthodox over here on the western parts of Asia. As far as cultures go, the French did a bit of colonization, though if I had to guess, it was probably the Italians on behalf of the French, as well as Venetia and Dalmatian. Looks like Croatia is actually Dalmatia this time around, which is pretty cool. I believe that Swabian had a bit of a renaissance here, pushing out this guy over here, so that's pretty good. Looks like Rhenish also grew, but yeah, Swiss over here in Geneva, holding out in the sea of both Italian as well as French. Pretty terrifying. The cultures over in China is a bit of a mess. I don't really know exactly how they look in 1444, but I assume that some guys have been changed, mostly down here in the south to these Wu and maybe this Zhonghui or however that's pronounced. This Malagasy culture looks very good over here in Madagascar, southern Africa, as well as the eastern parts of Africa. And it looks like Congolese has spread all the way up into this hell. I would assume that that is via Betsmisaraka. And the New World is definitely a bit of a mixed bag. We have Platinian, Portuguese, and Brazilian down here in Rio de Plata. We have Irish, Icelandic, Sardinian. In North America is mostly Portuguese in the Caribbean, and then Mexican and Castilian spattered throughout North America. Another game where we have American almost exclusively in Canada. We do have some Scottish provinces over here on the East Coast, right, with some English as well. And we can't forget about the Swedes. It looks like the Swedes were sent over to colonize the New World. And then this Seigoku from Japan all the way over here in the New World. So that is pretty sweet. Great powers, no real surprise. We have a fully stacked economic hegemon for Italy with the number one great power by almost 2x the number 2 section with Japan. That's Misaraka finishing a very respectable third place with Scandinavia, Munster, Brazil, Cyprus, and revolutionary Bali behind them. Brazil indeed does have the Island Boys buff, so I don't really know who formed them. This doesn't look right. Adopted Portuguese culture like a bunch of different times over the decades. Oh, I see. Brazil's emperor is João O'Neill. Probably not a common name in what I think of as Brazil. Yeah, that would explain it. They are an Irish nation. Okay, what do you guys say? Irish Brazil, best Brazil? And I oftentimes get a lot of comments asking about the development mode, so we'll take a look here. 51 dev on this mountain province down here because it's coal and the AI loves coal. 60 development in Rome. 63 in this island province over here because, yep, coal. Krakow at 61. And again, anything that has coal is going to have very high development because the AI is obsessed with it. You can actually just see the coal provinces based on the development map mode. How about the grasslands of Glamorgan over here with 52 development? That's very respectable. And the grasslands of Ursher over here, also 61 development. Very respectable. Aside from that, I don't really see a whole lot. Only 36 in Constantinople, but how about 10 over here for Cyprus at 48? Ireland in general just has quite a bit of development considering it's mostly forests, so 40-some, 30-some, pretty good. And in China, or rather Japan, we have a 65 dev province over here because, you guessed it, coal. These boys down here dev'd everything into space, at least 40 development in every single province except for like these two is 39, but that is kind of crazy to think of Madagascar as just like utopia. New World looks pretty good in the south, but the north still pretty red and orange, but you know, they did their best. Either way, lads, if you enjoyed and you want to see more stuff like this, like I said, leave a comment down below with your suggestions, as well as leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel because we are going for that 20K mark by the end of the year. If you want early access to these videos, my wonderful supporters over at Patreon get that, so take a look in the description for that. And if you want to join my Discord, my subreddit, or my Twitter, those things are also all linked in the description as well. I hope you are all having an absolutely wonderful day, and I hope you continue to have a wonderful day. That's all I got for you. Till next time, stay chill.